This is CBC Here and Now.
And that's when the world turned upside down.
For the record, painful wounds are reopened as families share stories of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls.
There is a problem, and everybody kind of needs to face up to it now.
Taking a hard look at health care.
That's a hell of a birthday present.
His wish came true, finishing first in Cane's Quest.
You'll need the sunglasses for the next couple of days across Newfoundland and Labrador, but keep the snow shovels handy for the weekend. The details are coming up.
Let's get to our top story. It was a day of emotional testimony at the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and children.
In Happy Valley Goose Bay, there were difficult stories and tears flowed as people shared how violence has ripped their lives apart.
The day started out with drumming, smudging, and prayers. Indigenous leaders spoke about what they hope change comes from the inquiry.
But the most powerful stories today came from people who've had their life turned upside down by violence.
Gordon and Silpa Obed lost their daughter-in-law. That was 3 years ago in Nain. The man who killed her had been released from jail and moved in with her.
They said the decision made by Child, Youth and Family Services to take her kids away made her more vulnerable and lonely.
It is up to us women to take our communities back and let these perpetrators know, no more. Out you go. You are not welcome here.
Community leader Kim Campbell McLean also spoke about the change that she'd like to see happen.
She shared some of the violence she's seen and talked about empowering women, getting them an education, and about what she thinks needs to happen with the abusers.
It's up to us women to take our communities back and let these perpetrators know, no more. Out you go. You are not welcome here.
The inquiry continues tomorrow, and the commissioners will hear more people share their stories.
Well, it's one of the most complex and expensive problems facing the province, the cost of health care. But what can be done to save money and better serve patients? That's the $3 billion question experts asked at a health forum at Munns Medical School today. Here now's Carolyn Stokes reports.
Everyone knows there's no quick fix to health care. It's a massive mechanism with a lot of moving parts. And today, some of those parts, the doctors, pharmacists, the nurses, the academics, and the politicians held a brainstorming session to find new ways to tackle an old problem.
This problem is soluble. It's not a black hole into which everything will fall.
But it is a money pit. $3 billion a year, the highest healthcare spending per capita of all the provinces. But despite that, we're not getting the bang for the buck.
Our healthcare outcomes are no better than any other jurisdictions, and in some areas our health indicators are actually worse.
Not all the players agree on different ways money can be saved.
The highest cost of absenteeism / overtime for nurses. And that's because they have an entitlement in their contract for a certain amount of sick leave.
I had to take a deep breath. I'll take one now, too.
The health minister says sometimes there are differences of opinion.
That is the single biggest source of friction lately. It's the interface between different skill sets and where they overlap. So it's physicians and nurse practitioners, it's pharmacists and physicians, it's RNs and LPNs.
But one thing everyone agrees on is
it's got to be about the patient at the end of the day.
And the other thing people can agree on is it's not about healthcare. It's not about how many patients do we get in and out in a day, or how many operations, or how many CT scans. It's about what does our health look like.
And right now, it's not looking good.
We've got the highest rates of chronic disease in the country for certain conditions.
We have the worst stroke care in the country.
High rates of obesity, heart disease, stroke.
If you want to look at health costs in this province, our spending is minute. We spend $60 million a year on health. The other $2.4 billion is on illness.
So while the experts search the system for savings, the biggest savings could be found in prevention.
There's an individual onus as well. It's on us to take care of ourselves as best we can, and rather than relying on a medical intervention to fix us up.
Carolyn Stokes, CBC News, St. John's.
There is word tonight that we could soon find out what will happen to the old and dilapidated Waterford Hospital in St. John's. Governments have been under pressure for decades to replace or close the psychiatric hospital that is more than 160 years old. At the Health Forum today, Health Minister John Haggie revealed to reporters that there is a plan and it will be made public soon.
Had extensive discussions with mental health professionals, including psychiatrists. They're all on board. So basically that proposal will be going forward to Cabinet over the next couple of weeks, and once it passes that sieve, shall we say, that level of approval, then we'll be in a position to announce something.
There are charges to tell you about tonight stemming from a fatal crash that happened a year ago. Thomas Whittle from Conception Bay South faces 1 charge of dangerous operation of a motor vehicle causing death and 3 charges involving impaired driving causing death. The accident happened on the road to Humber Valley Resort in February of last year. Police say the snowmobile the 27-year-old was driving collided with a taxi. A passenger on the snowmobile, 21-year-old Justin Pollard, died. It took a year to lay charges because police were waiting on lab results.
A judge denied a man's attempt at getting home invasion charges against him thrown out. Abdulfatah Mohammed, who is representing himself, faces a string of serious charges in relation to home invasions last February. Mohammed asked the court for what is called a directed verdict, saying no reasonable jury would find him guilty. But Judge Mike Madden says there is enough evidence to proceed, even if it is circumstantial. Mohammed didn't seem fazed with the decision, though, and one of his co-accused told him, well, it was worth a try. The case is back in court on March 27th.
The Steelworkers Union in Labrador City has a strong strike mandate. The result comes from more than 99% of its members who voted on Monday and Tuesday. The union says it's frustrated over IOC's proposal to make changes to the pension plan and sick leave. The Iron Ore Company of Canada hasn't commented on the results. There is no word on a strike date, as a conciliator still has to file a report with the provincial government. All right, well, let's bring Ryan in now to get a midweek look at the forecast. A lot of people already concerned about the weekend.
Yeah, it was nice,
yeah,
but it's not going to hold, is it?
Well, you know what? Tomorrow looks nice, even Friday. And so remember, it's only Wednesday today. I have to make sure my days of the week are right. They're all running together when you get kids at home, right? Now, as we look towards the weekend, though, that is where, for sure, as Anthony said, everybody's already looking ahead, and we do have some messy weather on the way. So let's roll it out for you here. As I mentioned off the top, for sure, sunglasses, keep them at the ready over the next couple of days. Still a bit of an onshore northerly flow here around the north coast and across the Avalon for tomorrow. I think we'll see more cloud than sun, but certainly some sun in the mix. And then note, the system knocking at the door here across the Maritimes, that won't actually be the system that impacts us. It's as we roll into the Friday time period, Friday morning, a new low developing off to the south. This is going to be the weather maker for us, and it will track in timeline here, Friday night and in through Saturday. Snow on the leading edge of this, and that looks set to continue through Saturday. Lingering snow even into Sunday, and we will break that all down with your full, complete timeline. The one big theme here, this is going to be a Newfoundland story. Labrador remains quiet, where it has been quiet for quite some time. Let's go to Jacob Barker in western parts of Labrador, where the weather really has been so quiet that it's really helped out with the Cairns Quest racers in their 3,200-kilometer journey, hasn't it, Jacob?
Yeah, Ryan, it's really helped the racers. It's clear simply because they're getting here early. They're 2 full days early into Lab City. It surprised a lot of people here, but what didn't surprise a lot of people here is the fact that some previous winners took the race today.
And welcome back to Here and Now. As we reported just a short while ago, the province's healthcare system was put under the microscope today at a public forum, and the disease was there for all to see. One of the presenters today was Dr. Pat Parfrey with the group Choosing Wisely, and he is joining me now live in the studio. Well, to continue with this disease metaphor, how ill is the healthcare patient?
Well, I think the budget is pretty ill insofar as we've got $8.1 billion budget and we're spending $3 billion in healthcare, which is 38% of our spending. And it's the elephant in the room that needs to be dealt with. It's sick because we're spending the highest amount of money in Canada on healthcare per capita, $5,500 per capita. That is the highest in the country. And our health outcomes are not good. Our health outcomes are the worst in Canada, and Canada is one of the worst countries in the world in the OECD. And I suppose the biggest insult is that the health outcomes measured in different ways are as bad as the United States.
And they're bad.
And they have 20% of their population is not covered by healthcare.
Okay, so we've got the highest spending, the poorest outcomes, and we're not even living longer by spending all that money, are we?
No, our life expectancy is the worst in the country, and it's the worst for both men and women.
Just point out, we have a graph here. What is the life expectancy for women and men here in this province?
So if you're looking at that graph on TV, the red line is the Newfoundland life expectancy, and the grey lines are all the other provinces. And you can see there that females have got a life expectancy that is, you know, a few years less than what's happening in British Columbia, and the male life expectancy is at 76 years, which is also the lowest in Canada.
Wow. Let's take a look forward now. You spoke today about some factors that make people sick. How could a slight shift in our resources make a difference in people's lives?
Well, one of the points I was making is that what's more important than healthcare is the social determinants of health, and that's spending that revolves around housing, social spending, education, diet, etc., etc. And that's twice as important as what the healthcare delivers. And we spend only $60 million on that, and we spend $2.6 million on healthcare delivery. And there's a recent study has come out that demonstrates that if you spend 1 cent per dollar on social determinants of health or social spending rather than health, life expectancy could increase by 5%. That's 4 years of extra life. So in my mind, there needs to be a decision to transfer or to spend more money on social spending.
So you're not taking away any money, you're just shifting it from healthcare to social area, and people could live 4 years longer.
Correct.
Wow. We have heard you talk before about overprescribing antibiotics, CT scans and all of that. How significant is all this unnecessary care to the problem?
Well, I think it's a substantial amount of the problem in that unnecessary spending and unnecessary interventions is considered to comprise about a quarter of healthcare spending. And we know that we have, in all our studies, we demonstrate that there is unnecessary use of drugs, unnecessary use of imaging tests, unnecessary use of biochemical testing, etc.
Are you making any progress, though, with curbing this? Are you getting through to doctors who are the prescribers?
Oh, yes, I think we are making progress. Now, remember, we only started a year ago. We have projects that have demonstrated clear spending, and when extrapolated to the province, do save money. But the healthcare is complicated. There's thousands of interventions, and trying to ensure that we get the best use of our resources requires a big effort. And we're only I think we're only scratching the surface in the work that we're doing.
You're saying healthcare is so complicated, you're even suggesting that an Auditor General of Health might be something that would help in this situation.
Well, the reason I think that we need a Quality of Care Council is that we need a mandate from a government to say that this is important and that we need to evaluate how we spend money and that we need to provide evidence-based interventions to more appropriately use those healthcare dollars. And you need to have some strength in terms of being able to intervene in changing behaviour and how we use those healthcare dollars.
Speaking of changing behavior, there's a culture of change that needs to happen, according to what you were saying today, from individual people's responsibility for their own role in their health care to politicians and so on. That's hard culture to change when it hasn't been changed for decades.
Culture is really difficult, I understand that. But I think that the way the healthcare system is designed is that there's constant demand. So the patient doesn't have to pay, they get universal access. They can go and use the healthcare system when they want. That's probably a good thing if it's used appropriately. Doctors get paid fee per item of service, so therefore they meet demand. And then the unions are looking for the best contracts they can get. The NMA are looking for the best contracts they can get. The media reports on anecdotes and doesn't deal with the strategic problems. So everything is pulling the healthcare system apart. So we've now got a healthcare system that's vulnerable financially, and all the pieces of it are pulling it apart. And what I would like to see happen is that there's a cultural change in that we know that the people want a universal health access. We know that. Now we need to be able to support the healthcare system. We do need to decrease demand by educating the public. Diminish access through the gatekeepers. The doctors need to use healthcare resources better. The unions and the politicians, etc., need to get on side and work out what is the best way to spend the healthcare dollars, and that will require transformative change in the healthcare system.
On that point, we will leave it there. It's very complex. Thank you for sharing some of your ideas with us, Dr. Pat Parfrey.
You're welcome, Debbie.
Fair play. It looks like there's a deal for hockey and basketball at Mile 1.
Well, as we told you earlier, the Canes Quest came to an end earlier today.
Let's get back to Jacob Barker in Labrador West, where good weather has helped the snowmobile racers in their long 3,200-kilometer journey. Jacob.
Yeah, Anthony, it helped so much that they got around the course 2 days earlier than expected. And it was no surprise who came in first place, because it was some previous winners. Robert Gardner and Andrew Milley arrived at about 11 o'clock this morning. They held on to the commanding lead they had coming out of Happy Valley Goose Bay. It's the third win for Gardner and the second for his teammate.
That's a hell of a birthday present.
Milley dedicated the win to his father.
This time we started off every leg with prayer. And I want to dedicate this to the man who taught me how important that is and who has given everything for me to be able to pursue this dream. Thanks, Dad.
He's an example that other young men can do for their families. Everything for him is about family. And I'm so proud of who he is and what he's done.
The Innu Hawks were not disappointed with second place. Racers Aaron Poker and Len Rich were met by friends and family at the finish. Their race dedicated to Aaron's aunt Teresa Michelin, who passed away shortly before the race.
I am happy with it. It's been a long ride. I don't know if I can do it again.
Innu participation was huge at this year's race. 8 teams from Sheshatshiu and Natwashish combined, and the hope was one of them would end up at the front of the pack. The Innu Hawks came pretty darn close. They appreciate all the support.
Thank you, I guess. They've been everywhere. Mukovic, Postfield, or all South Coast been supportive, which is really awesome. Yeah, we gained so much fans this year.
So are you saying?
Yeah, and so actually 2 racers just came in just now, and they're going to continue to come in all through the night until the cutoff, which is 18 hours after that first place team came in. But I'm sure they're eager to get in and warm and get a warm meal in them and into a warm bed after being out in the wilds of Canes Quest. Reporting live for Here and Now in Labrador West, I'm Jacob Barker.
Beautiful conditions there today.
Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Jacob wasn't wearing his usual hat.
I was going to say, he's acclimatized to Labrador when he's not wearing a hat or mitts in Western Labrador. Although a pretty nice day there.
Beautiful.
Highs near -3, so just...
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, for sure, for this time of year. And no doubt that they made record time in Canes Quest. If there was ever going to be a year where someone inexperienced like me could go and you know, obviously it would be double the time that those people did, but those folks did, but it'd be a year like this. Great weather conditions. The trails were apparently in great conditions as well. So anyway, it looks like Terry Roberts and Jacob had a great time following the puck along.
Definitely did.
Yeah. Okay, highs today. We talked about -3 in Labrador City, -3 in Happy Valley Goose Bay as well. Temperatures around the freezing mark on the island. The winds, thankfully, have started to subside at least a little bit, still sustained in the 30 to 40 range for Bonavista down through St. John's and towards the Burin Peninsula as well as the North Coast. Gusts still near 72 in Cape Race, but backed off to around 50 in St. John's towards the Burin Peninsula. Those winds will continue to ease tonight. This area of high pressure will be moving in, and that'll have sunshine on the menu, and it will really be the dominant feature for the next 2 days. Although this unsettled weather, which is snowing itself out for Pennsylvania, New York, Boston, the northeast parts of the U.S., causing all kinds of issues there, is going to be tracking up into our neck of the woods. It's a secondary low that develops off that'll be the trouble for us as we roll into the weekend. Here's how things play out. Note that the winds will continue to ease as we roll through tonight in through tomorrow morning. Cloudy to start the day, although won't rule out a bit of sun breaking through even in the early morning hours across eastern parts of Newfoundland, especially the west into Labrador. It's looking like a pretty nice start, just a chance of some isolated flurries early on. And then as we roll into the afternoon, more sunshine possible and likely for the Avalon, eastern parts of Newfoundland. Central, still a lingering chance of an isolated flurry even into the afternoon tomorrow. More sun for the west and southwest coast and across Labrador. Tomorrow is, as advertised for most of the week, going to be the nicest day of the week as we see temperatures in the 1 to 2 degree range for most. A little bit cooler through central towards the north coast. Should get to around 2 degrees for the western parts of Newfoundland as well. Under a mix of sun and cloud, it's going to be a pretty nice Thursday afternoon there. Temps a little bit cooler, obviously, up towards the north coast, but -6, not too bad for this time of year, and -4 from Happy Valley Goose Bay across to Labrador City. Now, Friday looks very quiet as well, though any sun will likely be in the early half of the day. We're going to be seeing increasing clouds building in through the day. Temperatures in the 1 to 2 degree range, especially towards western parts of Newfoundland. -4 for Happy Valley Goose Bay towards Labrador City. And then the mess rolls in as we roll towards the weekend, and this is going to be one that's an interesting track. Note where it is on Friday. It will actually be retrograding back to the west into the Maritimes, the center of the low. Yet all of this precip will be moving in across Newfoundland, and so if you do have travel plans on Saturday, be mindful that snow looks to be on the menu everywhere from St. John's across to Corner Brook, especially through the morning hours. It looks like that will lift to the north a little bit, and we'll likely see a change over to some drizzle for the Avalon and the Burin Peninsulas on Saturday afternoon, but the snow does look set to continue for central and western parts of Newfoundland, and this snow will linger even as we roll into the Sunday time period. So we'll talk more about that with your complete weekend story coming up in just a few minutes. Debbie?
Thanks, Ryan. Well, a local group trying to bring hockey back to Mile One Centre is working with the St. John's Edge owners on a deal that could see the two groups share the downtown space. Our Fred Hutton has that story.
These days, Edge basketball is the hottest ticket in town here at Mile One. Record-setting point-scoring nights from Carl English, a hometown favorite, has helped that, but soon hockey fans will have something to cheer about as well. Last month, Dean McDonald and Glenn Stanford secured a deal to bring an ECHL team to St. John's this coming September. That deal hit a legal snag, though, because the owners of the Edge have first rights to secure any sports teams for the building. That matter was supposed to head to arbitration, but it would appear that the process is unnecessary now. As sources tell CBC News, details of the official agreement will be announced next week when the majority owner of the Edge, Irwin Simon, is in the province. The deal is good news for hockey fans and Dean McDonald, who says he's already spent close to $2 million to secure this team. But it also puts a lot of pressure on McDonald and Stanford, as they've got about 6 months to get players, a coach, arrange all the travel, and of course the schedule with the rest of the league. And don't forget, they need to pick a name for the team. Fred Hutton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, another basketball nail-biter at Mile One last night, where you just saw Fred, but sadly, the St. John's Edge just couldn't hold their own against the Halifax Hurricanes. The Edge fought hard, but the best team in the Atlantic Division beat them. It was close, though. The final score, 116 to 114. Just a single basket in the difference. Not too bad, considering the Edge were down 19 points in the third period. Hometown favorite Carl English, you see there, had the night off after scoring those 58 points that Fred mentioned in Saturday's game. The good news, though, the Edge face off against the Hurricanes again tonight at 7 o'clock, the final game in a two-game series.
Well, it will be a battle of the home teams at the Briar tonight. The two teams from Newfoundland and Labrador will face off at the National Men's Curling Championships in Regina tonight at 9:30 Island time. Brad Gushu's team is playing as Team Canada following last year's Briar win. And they're going into tonight with 5 wins and 1 loss after losing to Alberta today. Team NL is represented by Greg Smith, and they have 1 win and 5 losses.
I only wanted to come to, look at different career opportunities.
Do young people see a future in the oil and gas industry here? Welcome back to Here and Now. Newfoundland and Labrador's annual Oil and Gas Week kicked off on Monday. Yesterday, more than 700 students from 11 high schools on the Avalon Peninsula attended an oil and gas career fair. Here and Now's Mark Quinn was there, and he spoke with one of the organizers as well as some students about the future of this industry.
Because it's so non-renewable, I feel like we should really work in the future to be able to conserve. And conserving is a really big deal in this kind of society because everything is, like I said, so up and down, and we can't make new oil. Oil is just always there. It's not, if it goes away, then we're never going to have it again. So I hope there's a future. We were actually talking about this on the way here, that oil and gas being non-renewable, that we hope that they do conserve and make sure that we do not use too much now, so that in the future that maybe our children who have the same ambitions that we do, that they can go into this profession and do these things as grown-ups.
Well, today this is Energy Day, and we bring in high school students from the Avalon area, and they learn about careers that are available in the oil and gas industry. A lot of people think a lot of the jobs are just offshore, but there's a lot of jobs onshore as well. So a lot of people think hands-on tools or trades or engineering, but there's a variety. We have environment, health and safety, we have supply chain, we have accounting, a lot. The list goes on.
I think there's always going to be job opportunities in oil and gas because you need it for everything. There's like heating and there's cars and there's all that kind of stuff. You need it for everything else. So I feel like it'll be something we always need. Staying in Newfoundland and Labrador, possibly, but I don't know. I probably won't. Yeah.
And why do you say?
I kind of want to move to the other side of Canada.
I'm really interested in different workforce opportunities, such as like engineering and working with the oil and gas. So I definitely wanted to come to, look at different career opportunities to kind of like broaden my what I want to do after school. I would probably stay here or maybe go away to Alberta, up in Fort Mac and stuff. My uncle and my godfather, they both go away. They go up to Alberta and Fort Mac and Fort McMurray and stuff. They tell me that it's a great industry to work in. You make good money and stuff like that. You meet a lot of good people. You make a lot of friends in that industry and stuff because everyone's such a close-knit community.
Well, students and staff at Torbay's new school held an assembly today to give a big thank you to the local Lions Club. The Lions Club's only been active in Torbay for 3 years. But today, the group donated $15,000 to Juniper Ridge Intermediate School. Juniper Ridge opened last April, and despite having a brand new building, staff said the school's resource center could use a boost. The money will be used to buy 30 Chromebook computers and a special charging cart.
We're in a big, beautiful school. We have all kinds of resources around us, and we're so lucky. But we did need more Chromebooks. I think we can all agree on that. So this is going to double the amount of Chromebooks that we're going to have in our school. Members of the Lions Club, I can guarantee you that your donation today will directly impact the learning of every single student that you see in front of you here today. So well done. Thank you very much, Lions Club.
That he found her mom stabbed to death.
More testimony from inquiry in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Time to meet our young athlete of the day. Here is Charlotte Shepard. Charlotte is 5 years old and lives in the CBS area.
Yeah, looks pretty happy there. This young lady participates in swimming and figure skating at the recreation complexes in CBS, and you can tell by the picture, pretty happy.
Absolutely. Great smile. Way to go, Charlotte. You're today's young athlete of the day.
The weather update is brought to you by Belltone Hearing Service St. John's, helping the world hear better.
The whole island map is a bright yellow.
Yeah. Oh.
Not good.
No. Special weather statements in effect. And, you know, when I posted some of the updates over the last couple of days, sounds like there's a lot of hockey tournaments on the go this weekend. So, obviously, folks looking to travel. Of course, the Winter Games are happening next week in Deer Lake. A lot of folks looking to travel this weekend to get there, and so obviously some concern with that. So here's where we are in terms of special weather statements. Basically the first step in letting everybody know that there's a system on the way, and it is going to be bringing some snowfall. Wreck House is under a wind warning as well. That wind will pick up by the time we get to late Thursday, and it will continue to gust through Friday, even into Saturday. Have a look at the setup. Cold air in place as our next system rolls up the eastern seaboard. It's now over to 3 degrees in Boston as they've changed to rain there. It will go back to snow as the system rolls up towards the Maritimes. That actual low that you saw there on the map won't be impacting us. It's going to be dissipating over the Maritimes over the next few days as this area of high pressure blocks that from getting into our neck of the woods. It's, again, going to be a story for those folks, pretty quiet for the next couple of days. In fact, you want to keep the sunglasses handy for Thursday and even into Friday, although the clouds certainly thickening up on Friday on the island as that next system starts to move in with its cloud cover. But this is going to be our low here. It develops as we roll into the Friday time period, and it's an interesting track. With this blocking high, it actually will develop on Friday. It's going to track retrograde back to the west. By Saturday morning, it's over Cape Breton. It sweeps back through Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia by Sunday morning, and then it finally departs. So as it's spinning off to our south, what does it bring for us? Well, a little bit of everything in terms of the Avalon and southeastern parts of Newfoundland, where I think we'll go from snow to some rain and drizzle, and then finally back to some snow as we roll through Sunday, possibly into Monday. Mostly snow for central. I think the heaviest amounts or the heaviest potential certainly looking set for that north coast and up towards the eastern side of the northern peninsula. I think lighter snow with this kind of a setup for the west coast and into southeastern Labrador, but it's still a little too early for the nitty-gritty details in terms of exactly how much snow, because that track is so key. And as we take a look at your track here, we will see that snow moving in for Friday night in through Saturday. By Saturday evening, the heaviest snow looks to have worked to the north, and this is where we'll start to get into some of that mixing through Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. Again, beginning Friday, tracking through on Saturday, and then by Saturday evening it's here. And you can see where there's some mixing over the Avalon and the Burin Peninsulas. Now, as we roll into the Sunday time period, this is where things get a little more questionable, depending on where this low is that steadiest snowfall, which will be lighter, but still coming down at a steady clip through Sunday. Will it be, say, over the northern peninsula and southeastern Labrador, or will it be more over the northeast coast and central? Both of those are still possibilities. It does look like we will see some snow sweeping back into the Avalon and eastern parts of Newfoundland Sunday night into Monday as well. So a couple of rounds of snow possible even here in the east. So there's a lot of those little details that are still left to be ironed out, and we're only at Wednesday, and we're talking about a forecast and a system that's going to be a long duration event that continues right through till Monday. That's why there's still some uncertainty, and no snow totals for me just yet, but certainly over the next 24 hours should get a better handle on this one. I think the take home here is snow begins Friday night. If you have travel plans on Saturday, expect that the snow will be steady. On Sunday, certainly lighter snow, but snow still on the menu through Sunday across the island. Monday starting to taper off, still some lingering flurries. And oh yeah, another system for Tuesday night into Wednesday of next week. Just keep that in the back of your head as well. And across Labrador, very, very quiet. Perhaps some lighter snow into Happy Valley Goose Bay in the southeast, but overall a pretty quiet 7-day shaping up for you folks. That's your forecast. To now, Debbie and Anthony.
Thanks, Ryan. Now back to our top story tonight, the federal inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The first of 2 days of testimony took place in Happy Valley Goose Bay today.
And as we heard earlier, one of the most heart-wrenching stories came from Gordon Obed. He and his wife, Silpa, lost their daughter-in-law 3 years ago in Nain. Here's more of what he had to say.
I want to take a break.
Anyway, our grandson had gone to his mom's apartment. That's when he went to check on his mom in her bedroom. She was covered with a blanket. And she opened the blanket thinking she was sleeping. She opened the blanket, she had a knife in her heart. And obviously he lost it. He lost his mind, I guess. He was living with our daughter who lived quite a ways up. He had left the apartment and ran up to my daughter's house. When he got there, he was bawling and crying. He wasn't making any sense to my daughter and whoever was in the house for about 20 minutes or so. He finally told my daughter that he found her mom stabbed to death in her apartment. And that's when we had the call from our daughter. And that's when our world turned upside down.
And of course, we'll have more on this tomorrow from Happy Valley Goose Bay. Turning now to national news, federal researchers have created a vaccine to prevent deadly infections in northern and Indigenous communities. It's a collaboration between the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg and the National Research Council in Ottawa. Now that the basic science has been done, the NRC has licensed production of the vaccine to a private Vancouver-based company, which is now looking for federal funding to conduct clinical trials. Karen Pauls has more.
She's going to identify the type of bacteria.
Haemophilus influenza A isn't the common flu. It's a potentially deadly bacteria that can cause pneumonia, blood poisoning, and meningitis.
So you're trying to find the piece of the bacteria that you use to make a vaccine?
That's right. What we're hoping to get is a prevention and instead of just the treatment itself.
Every year in Canada, mostly in northern and Indigenous communities, 500 people are infected with Haemophilus influenza A. Many have to fly south for weeks of treatment. Even so, about 10% of them, mostly children, will die.
Certainly the living conditions in the north with crowding and poor access to nutritious foods probably contributes to it.
Researchers in Winnipeg isolated the piece of the bacteria most vulnerable to a vaccine. They sent it to the National Research Council of Canada in Ottawa. There, scientists engineered a molecule called a carrier protein. That makes it easier for the vaccine to recognize the bacteria, generating a stronger immune response.
We think the fact that it kills all the different strains that we've got in our collection from different geographical locations establishes that we believe it would be a very good vaccine.
Well, prevention is always very important.
Indigenous leaders welcome anything that will improve the health and quality of life for their people, but they also want to make sure there's informed consent.
We're not rats. They should test it on somebody else before they bring it out to us. Like, we're from the far north and our healthcare has not always been that great, but that doesn't mean they should throw anything at us that they want to.
Health Canada says no trials would take place without Indigenous input and consent. All of that could take years. The earliest this vaccine could be available is 2022.
Canadians are currently dying of something which we could prevent.
Which is why Andrew Cox hopes the funding and the approvals come soon. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A former Russian spy and his daughter were poisoned with a nerve agent. That's the conclusion reached by British police, and they're treating the case as an attempted murder.
The two people originally who became unwell were targeted specifically. Our role now, of course, is to establish who is behind this.
Since the two were found unconscious on Sunday, speculation has centered on possible Russian involvement. Sergei Skripal was a double agent for the British government. Russia arrested him in 2004. He was granted refuge in Britain 6 years later in a prisoner exchange. Now, Russia denies any involvement in the poisoning. Skripal and his daughter remain in critical condition. A police officer who arrived at the scene is also seriously ill.
The town of Hampstead, Quebec wants smokers to butt out when they're in public. It's proposing a bylaw to ban smoking in all public places, and if it comes into force, it will be one of the most restrictive bylaws in the country. Navneet Paul has more.
Riley Gallagher is used to smoking on his way home, but this may be one of his last cigarettes. He's not quitting. He just won't be able to smoke on Hampstead's sidewalks.
I feel pretty strongly against that. I feel like they're constantly kind of pushing us further and further away.
In addition to sidewalks, the proposed smoking ban would also include parks and public buildings.
If the sidewalk's no longer an option, then I'm not really sure where I'm supposed to smoke in that case. I can't stand in the middle of the street, and if I can't smoke anywhere other than my own apartment, which I guess depending on your landlord is becoming more and more difficult, I'm not sure where I'm supposed to smoke.
Hampstead Mayor Bill Steinberg says people can still smoke on private property, such as their porches, backyards, or their cars. Steinberg doesn't believe that bylaw would infringe on anyone's civil liberties.
There's freedom to smoke, but not when your secondhand smoke is ruining the health of anyone near you.
Steinberg expects the motion to become a bylaw soon. He says it's also meant to stop people from smoking pot in public once it becomes legal.
Kids walking around our streets or in our parks smoking joints. That's not a very good example for the younger people, and it isn't very good in terms of secondhand smoke. We've, I think, for quite some time wanted to deal with tobacco as well, so we're just dealing with both of those at the same time.
The smoking ban would be enforced by Hampstead's public security. Anyone caught could face a fine of at least $100. These joggers think it's a good idea.
Because a lot of people, even me, I'm bothered with people smoking around, and most of them they don't really have common sense with people around.
The bylaw has one exception. The use of electronic cigarettes will be permitted. Navneet Paul, CBC News, Hampstead.
The popular video game series Assassin's Creed is heading to the classroom. The Montreal-based company that created that game has developed its first ever educational version, and they've set it in ancient Egypt. Jayla Bernstein reports.
The federal finance minister was out today making a sales pitch for yesterday's budget. Bill Morneau says people are asking about the new National Pharmacare plan. The Advisory Council has a year to make it all work, but Morneau already has an idea of what he wants them to look at.
All right, apologies for that. That was not the correct story, and we'll see what we can do about that. As far as other news goes, there's a major trade story developing that we've talked about recently. Justin Trudeau was asked today about the looming trade war with the United States over steel and aluminum. A lot of people in Labrador are worried about what iron ore imports and exports might look like. The Prime Minister and U.S. President Donald Trump spoke on Monday, and now the United States appears to be dangling a carrot over Canada and Mexico.
He was very clear that he was focused on moving forward on NAFTA and felt that if we could get a good deal on NAFTA, there would be no need for tariffs. We're going to continue to both make the case against tariffs and move forward diligently to try and improve NAFTA.
Trump said he wants a North American free trade agreement that is fair to all three countries. He told Trudeau that NAFTA currently leaves the U.S. with a trade deficit. Trump said he wouldn't spare Canada or Mexico from tariffs that he plans to slap on steel and aluminum imports, but he held out the possibility of later exempting some countries if they agree to better terms for the U.S., including the NAFTA countries. And of course, that's all part of the NAFTA renegotiation now.
Our viewer picture of the day, sunset on the south coast. And this is an aerial on the south coast. How should I, it's,
Don't be so cryptic.
In the Fortune Bay region.
Bay.
So if you can name the town, there's big bonus points for you.
Wow, there's not much of a clue.
Pools Cove. No.
No.
Is that a river or salt water?
That's a good question,
It must be salt water. That's very wide. It's not the Humber, so.
No. It's pretty frozen, though.
Yeah.
Stumped.
Welcome back once again. Well, it looks like Taylor Swift isn't the only one who can shake it off.
Shake it off. Shake it off. Shake it off.
Yes, that's Michelle Obama dancing in Washington with one of her smallest fans, 2-year-old Parker Curry, who became a viral sensation last week thanks to this amazing photo that you're about to see. You might recall this was sort of went nuts on the internet.
Yeah.
Totally awestruck.
She was awestruck by Michelle Obama's portrait in the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery. And that photo caught the former First Lady's attention. It led to a meeting which led to this dance party.
Right. Obama tweeted about it too, saying maybe one day she'd proudly look up at a portrait of Parker. A sweet story. Very nice.
So how's this for a 109th birthday party celebration?
There we go. Yeah. Oh, you good to go. Yeah.
The Globetrotters celebrated this week by donating 109 tickets to underprivileged kids in Virginia McLaurin's honor. It's just another big birthday for her. You may remember Virginia from a few years ago when she celebrated her birthday at the White House.
She was dancing up a storm with the Obamas. That video got more than 1 million views online.
Nice.
Good at dancing. A young dancer and an experienced dancer.
Oh,
right?
very nicely worded, Mr. Germain.
So sensitive.
Yes.
Got to be, got to be.
Okay, so we've got our viewer picture of the day. The clue was South Coast, Fortune Bay.
Fortune Bay.
Beautiful sunset picture here.
It's a sweet one, yeah.
Yeah, so this was actually taken in the Harbor Mill area.
Oh, okay.
Fortune Bay, and beautiful shot there. So I'm actually not sure whether that is, because I'm not sure where exactly in Harbor Mill that was taken, but not 100% sure whether that is freshwater or saltwater,
Okay.
but I'm leaning with you guys. I'm thinking more
Somebody
salt.
should tweet Anthony right away.
Yeah,
we might
all
get
right.
it.
Let us know, Mina, if you're watching.
Yes.
It is a great shot wherever it is, and we always love looking at those.
Yep, keep them coming. Ryan's got a big collection and likes it to get bigger.
Sure, absolutely.
Remind people where they can send it.
Facebook.com/Ryan.Snoddon, and that's where you can find, again, some weather updates there too. But if you click on posts, and you'll see post to page, and the stream is constant of folks uploading pictures, and so many great ones. So thank you again for everyone who shares.
Even if you don't want to post anything, it's just worth a look at all those pictures that are there.
Definitely.
Thanks for being with us, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
See you tomorrow.